During the events of Gundam Wing, Wufei Chang was the pilot of the Shenlong Gundam, and later the Altron Gundam. By Oz, these machines would all be known as Gundam 05, but Wufei himself had a different name for his Gundams, Nataku. In today's episode of Gundam Lore, we'll find out where this name came from and why he kept giving it to his Gundams. In After Colony 194, we see a very different Wufei from the one we saw in the anime. Rather than a fighter, this Wufei was mostly interested in pursuing his academic career. However, at the age of 14, he was destined to become the heir of the mighty Long clan by marrying a girl known as Mei Lan, and she had very different interests. Once the Long clan was feared all over Eurasia, something that would eventually come back to bite them. Due to their power and influence, they were becoming a danger to the government, and so they were exiled to the old AO-206 colony. Despite this, the Long clan would carry on their tradition, and Mei Lan fully intended to play her role in this. Seeing herself as the strongest fighter of her clan, she dubbed herself Nataku. And because of all of this, she wanted her husband to be a strong warrior who would fight for justice too, and not some geeky bookworm more interested in his studies. This is not to say that Wufei was a pushover in combat either. One day when Wufei was out studying in a field, he was again confronted by Mei Lan about his studies and lack of warrior spirit. Everyone else of the clan was always out practicing, but he just sat around with his books. With the sky beginning to cloud, he asked her why she fought. Which for Mei Lan was obvious. She fought for justice. Wufei closed his book and asked her if something like that really existed. In response, Mei Lan took up a fighting stance, ready to show Wufei what she meant. A challenge that the bookworm was surprisingly eager to take her up on. Wufei took off his glasses, and as the rain started pouring, so did their fight start. But it wouldn't last long. With one kick, Wufei was able to down the self-proclaimed strongest fighter of the Long clan. And while putting his glasses back on, he ridiculed her for calling herself Nataku. She was still a long way off from being able to name herself after a protection god. He then added that her notion of justice was foolish as well. Mei Lan got up again and told him that she knew her justice might be seen as foolish, but this was the way of the Long clan, and there was no way she was giving up on it. After this, Wufei went over to Master O and talked about the incident. He thought he'd won both the battle and the argument, but Master O felt different on the matter. Sure, Wufei successfully forced his way of thinking on Mei Lan, but did he actually manage to change her way of thinking? More so, Wufei just sits around studying all day and didn't actually do anything, even though he had the power and the opportunity to make a difference. Wufei simply said that it was irrelevant because no single human being has the ability to change the course of history. So, Master O wanted to know if Wufei was simply going to stand by as history ran its deadly course. Apparently not knowing how to answer, Wufei changed the topic to the mobile suits Master O was building in the hangar and asked if it was for that ideal that he'd created those pieces of junk. Then, taking a page out of Wufei's playbook, Master O also changed the topic and asked Wufei if he had any good names for those pieces of junk. He didn't have to think long about it. Shenlong, the godly dragon, and also added that Nataku was too weak to defend the Long clan. At the same time, Oz and the Earth Alliance were en route to capture the colony and to exterminate the threat living on it. How they were going to go about this, though, was something they couldn't agree on. The Alliance Strike Force, under the command of General Septim, was going to wipe out everyone on the colony with biological weapons, whereas the Oz forces, under Trace's command, wanted to quell the threat with a mobile suit attack instead. And because they couldn't agree on which strategy they'd go for, Oz was now racing against the Alliance to prove that their mobile suits were more than enough to deal with that scrap heap of a colony. But what they hadn't counted on was Meilan taking the tall geese and rushing to defend the colony. This was in spite of Masuro warning her that the tall geese wasn't something a woman could pilot, clearly forgetting that she no longer identified as a woman, but as an otaku. I guess this is also where Wufei got his sexism from. But Meilan, or rather Nataku if you will, was definitely able to put her money where her mouth was. She engaged the Leos, and she was doing a great job holding them off. But there was another problem. To minimize damage to the colony, she had to try and lure the Leos back outside. And as she was doing this, Wufei showed up just to yell at her that she didn't have the power to pilot the tall geese. Fortunately for everyone involved, he realized that yelling at the sky wasn't helping anyone. So instead, he kept yelling how stupid of a woman she was without any strength, while running to go get the incomplete Shenlong to, in his mind, save her incompetent ass. But in all seriousness though, despite everyone around her telling how she couldn't pilot the tall geese, she was doing a remarkably good job. The tall geese was an extremely difficult to pilot mobile suit, and she had been single-handedly fighting off crack Oz Leos while Wufei was running to get the Shenlong, got it ready to launch, and intercepted an Alliance biological attack squadron. In fact, it wouldn't be until Wufei showed up that everything went downhill. Rather than cooperating with Nataku, he took her Dober gun and told her to get lost. And when she tried to protest this, he told her to act like a good wife and listen to her husband. Wufei then proceeded to completely fuck up everything. After having learned that Trace was the man in command of this operation, he ran out of ammo and was unable to do anything about the Leo rushing him. Meilan, on the other hand, or Nataku, immediately reacted and rammed her now weaponless tall geese into the Leo. Her tall geese blew up, but at the very least she was able to save her husband, and that beautiful field of flowers that she wanted to spend her last moments in. Wufei took her there, and for the first time she took the time to admire the flowers. But it would also be the last time. The toll that piloting the tall geese had taken on her body was severe, and it wouldn't be long before she passed away. At the very least, it was the first time Wufei called her Nataku of his own will, a name that he would now keep using to refer not just to his late wife, but also to the Gundam that she died protecting. In the end, it would seem that Nataku had won, at least with Master O's logic, because she had successfully altered Wufei's way of thinking and turned him into someone that wanted to actively change the course of history. Although throughout the series, we would still be able to see the old Wufei resurface from time to time. And that is all for the history of Wufei from the episode of Zero manga. And boy did this make me dislike Wufei even more. But I think I already made that quite clear during my reading of the story. However, this does not mean that I disliked the story, because unlike the previous Gundam Wing lore I did, I felt that this story was basically a perfect fit for Wufei. We saw all of the elements from the manga also in the anime. In the manga, he ends as the confident fighter we saw at the beginning of the anime, and after his loss to Trace, we saw that passive personality from the beginning of the manga resurfacing again. And in addition to that, the manga also gives us a very good catalyst to change his personality, and it's also a very good reason for him to keep calling his Gundams Nataku. In short, it is a very well written and believable story. The only thing that I can hold against it is how Wufei was supposedly a bookworm, but he managed to beat the strongest fighter of the Long Clan with one mere kick. Seems like a bit of a stretch, but whatever, maybe he was just training in secret or something. So let me know what you thought of the story down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more similar content. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.